continue the conversation and welcome Dr. Wil Del Pilar, Senior Vice President at the Education Trust. According to their site, their mission is to advance policies to dismantle racial and economic barriers in American education. Dr. Del Pilar, thanks so much for taking the time to be here. How effective could the Higher Education Act, how realistic could it be that there could actually be some reform that comes from that path forward when it comes to student debt relief?
At this point, I think it's the only option that's available to the administration. They've explored other options, and those other options have not been successful, and they were challenging the course. And so I think at this point, given the options that the administration and the president have, this is really the only path forward, unless Congress were to get involved. Given the current majority in the House, I think it's unlikely to get legislation that will cancel any student debt unless there's a change in midterm elections that are coming up.
Now, on the Republican side, there's been a proposal, the Federal Assistance to Initiate Repayment Act. It would create an income-driven repayment plan. It would be set at 10% of borrowers' discretionary income. What impact could an income-based plan have?
The income-based repayment, looked at them, were quite generous what the administration has proposed, but it's not generous enough. We still have people who are struggling with student debt, having a very hard time to cover their basic needs. And so even if we institute 10% of someone's inflation, given the cost of housing, given rising costs of food, given the rising cost of gas, I think that the current repayment plans aren't generous enough in terms of what we're providing borrowers in terms of relief. It's basically just it's putting off, in my opinion, what the president could do through the Higher Education Act, the administration could do the Higher Education Act, or Congress could actually provide relief to borrowers. They're just choosing not to do that.
Now, there are a lot of opinions out there on this. What do you say to those who would argue, I paid my loans, why can't others do the same? We just heard a Republican candidate for president, Tim Scott, say that. And also those who say, as a taxpayer, I don't want to foot the bill for students and their debt relief.
There are significant racial wealth gaps in this country, and for those who've been able to pay their loans off, I applaud them. But for many, it's basically unpayable debt. It's debt that did not pay off for them in the long run. And so I would argue that for those who paid their loans off, I applaud you. Good. I'm very happy that you have the wealth to be able to do that. There are people who will never be able to do that. It hangs over their head. It creates mental health challenges. It creates stress for people. And so if we have an opportunity to close the racial wealth gap for those who struggle the most to pay for college, then we should do that. For those who would argue that as a taxpayer that we shouldn't be covering this, then we have, for example, we forgave the debt of people when there was the loans for small businesses during the pandemic. All of those loans were canceled. Do we have a problem as taxpayers forgiving those debt? Do we only have a problem when we do it for individuals, or when we do it, for example, for the auto industry or for banks? Do we have a problem as taxpayers forgiving those debts or canceling those debts or bailing those industries out? But when it comes to individuals, we have an issue with it. And so I of a hypocrisy at play, where we are okay with it in certain circumstances, but in other circumstances we have a huge issue with it because it benefits the individual and not large corporations.
And we have just about 30 seconds. Long term, do you see this decision impacting enrollment in college, especially because so many students are already looking at places like trade schools for education?
We're already seeing a significant decline in enrollment in higher education. I do think affordability and the issue of affordability is a huge issue that students students and families are considering. And so I do think that this decision will have some impact. I think that the affirmative action decision will also have some impact on student enrollment. If students question whether is college really worth it? Is college really the path that I want to choose? Or is there an alternative where I don't have to take on debt, where I don't have to invest 4 years of my time to make it to a middle-class lifestyle? And so I do think that college enrollments have been impacted since COVID, and I think that it'll continue to be impacted as a result of these decisions.
All right, Dr. Wil Del Pilar, Senior Vice President at the Education Trust. Thank you so much for your insight, such an important topic. Coming up.